Oh, the horror! The internet is absolutely just panicking over the new Elden Ring leaked gameplay. But should you? Probably not. Let's talk about it. But before that, I'm giving away an Xbox Series S at 77,000 subscribers, which we are super close to. All you have to do to enter is be subscribed, leave a comment below explaining why you want it, and share this video. And for more details, be sure to check the video description. Alright, so Elden Ring, which is a highly anticipated game and the next title coming out from the creators of Dark Souls, is set to launch on January 21st of 2022. Yet we just got another leaked short bit of gameplay that has the internet absolutely freaking out, as it's not what many people were expecting to see, especially when it comes to the graphics. But is it really worth panicking over, and what does this leaked footage tell us about how the final game is going to play? Well, in order to find that out, let's go ahead and dive right into this leaked footage. But before that, first, let's go over a little bit of context. So this leaked footage was originally shared over on Twitter by Jeff Grubb, and actually if we go ahead and we take a look at his original post, he does have a few things to say about it, and then of course we will get right into that footage and we'll go ahead and break it down. So according to Jeff Grubb, quote, alleged Elden Ring footage from Xbox One, and he posted that right above the actual footage itself, and then in response to the footage down below, he had this to say, quote, the leaker is saying that this is Xbox One. I'm betting that it's Xbox One X based on the frame rate. It is a few weeks old and the capture hardware is low quality, apparently. So right away I can tell you that if this is footage from the Xbox One, yes, it's not going to look nearly as good as footage that you're going to see from like a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or even heck an Xbox Series S, because we do have to keep in mind that the original Xbox One has like just over 1 teraflop of GPU compute performance, whereas if you compare that to something like the Xbox Series X, that actually has around 12 teraflops of GPU compute performance. So yeah, something like the Xbox Series X is going to give you much better visuals than an original Xbox One. Now, he seems to believe it's on an Xbox One X. I don't think that's the case, because at least according to the original source footage, when I went ahead and I took a look at it, it is 30 FPS and the original source is 720p. So unless, like he mentioned, unless the capturing is just that terrible, I do have a feeling this is probably coming from a regular Xbox One, but hey, it could apparently be from an Xbox One X as well. So if that is the case, and this is an Xbox One X, which is significantly more powerful than the regular Xbox One, I would be a little bit concerned about how it is going to look on that console. But keep in mind, before you panic, this is probably a older build, and this game is not ready to actually ship yet. So yes, it is probably going to look a lot better. But in any case, with all that information out of the way, let's go ahead and actually break down the gameplay footage that was shared over on Twitter. So if we take a look here, just starting right at the beginning, we can see here, there is actually one thing I don't like. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video right away. We can see that right away the sword is actually clipping through the cape. I was kind of hoping that little issues like this would be resolved, especially going forward onto next generation consoles and stuff like that. But unfortunately, yes, there are going to be little visual bugs like that. It's not the end of the world, but that is something that might bother some people. But in any case, yes, we can see this is definitely Elden Ring here. You can see the background itself actually visually looks very beautiful. However, where I think people are having a problem is that, you know, even though the lighting looks pretty decent, there does seem to be not super great shading, at least in my opinion, especially if you take a look at that grass. You can see it doesn't really seem to be having too many shadows on the grass. So little things like that, especially if you're on the Xbox One, you're probably going to notice. Yes, it's not going to have super high fidelity graphics like that. However, like I mentioned, if you're playing on something like an Xbox Series X, a PlayStation 5, or a PC, yes, the game is going to look much better. So keep that in mind. But we can see here, and I think this is where things get a little bit weird. So we can see that he like starts jumping around, which is interesting to show that yes, you can jump in this game. That's cool. That's great that they added a jumping feature. But I think what people are panicking about is if you take a look at this frame that I've frozen for you guys right here, you can kind of see that like the ground right here, especially where I've frozen it right now, is very low resolution and it's low poly. And I think this has a lot of people just absolutely panicking because yeah, this is something that I haven't seen in a little while. In fact, in my opinion, this actually does look a little bit worse than something like Dark Souls 3. So I think for a lot of people out there who are very, you know, obsessed with the actual visuals of a game, this is definitely rubbing them the wrong way, and it's causing them to panic because here we are, we're not too long away from the game, and if this is some of the footage that's coming out, and they don't even know that it's coming from something like an Xbox One, they're starting to panic, they're freaking out, they're going, oh no, this game's gonna look terrible, what am I gonna do? But as many people know, these games never have been necessarily the best visually looking games. Now, if you take a look at something like Demon's Souls Remastered, yes, that one looks absolutely fantastic, but taking a look at like Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 1, those games were never necessarily sold on their graphics, they were more sold on their gameplay. So there is some concern about it not looking that great, but ultimately, I don't necessarily think that's going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not it's a good game. But this is just kind of an example to show you guys why people are freaking out about this game. Yeah, it just seems like people are getting in an absolute panic because they don't like the actual visuals of the game itself. But for those of you out there who are freaking out about the visuals, like I mentioned, this is probably on an Xbox One. The footage that was captured at 720p 30 frames per second. Is that going to be the original actual source of the video? I don't necessarily know. All we know is this is the actual footage that we have our hands on. Now, the only thing that's actually concerning to me is this going to be 30 FPS? Even on the last gen consoles, I don't want to see 30 FPS. I would prefer that they, forego better visuals to get 60 FPS on all platforms, including PC. In fact, on PC, I'd like to see them unlock the FPS to 120 FPS. I'd really like to see that, but at a minimum, I would like to see all platforms at 60 FPS, even if this does mean that the visuals can't be as good as you would necessarily like them to be. But that being said, if you're playing on PC, if you're playing on Xbox Series X, if you're playing on PlayStation 5, I would expect this game to look much better than this footage that we've seen thus far. Now, am I, going to go ahead and say that this game is going to be the best visually looking game that's ever been released this year? Probably not. They don't necessarily have a track record of doing that. It's probably not going to look like amazing, but I think it will look competent. And I think that what's most important is, again, getting that good frame rate and getting good gameplay. But hey, that's just what I think. Do you think Elden Ring's actually only going to play at 30 FPS, 720p on last gen consoles? Or do you think it's going to be somewhere around like 1080p, 60 FPS? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. And of course, I'll see you in the next video. If you made it to the end of the video, be sure to drop a like. Every time you do so, AMD and Nvidia get more stock. Also, if you want to see more, click here. You won't be disappointed.